Welcome to a Fortnight on the Isle, my bi-weekly update series. I'm your host, King Crusoe, but you can call me KC. And you may notice, if you are subscribed to my second channel to any degree, that this video is now on both my main channel and my second channel, and I think that at least for the foreseeable future, Fortnight on the Isle will be on both channels, since I cover information regarding some upcoming releases and also some what I've been doing that pertain to both of the channels. I felt like it was fitting and made sense to start making my update videos available for anybody who's only subscribed to one channel or the other. You don't have to be subscribed to the main channel if you don't want to be, in order to see what I'm actually working on. You'll also have noticed, if you were paying attention last week to the channel, that the State of Affairs was also on both channels. Kind of same thing applies to that, one of my update series, and also covers some statistics and things like that for both channels, and thus made sense to post on both of them. Anyway, today's video is going to be a somewhat odd one, even compared to normal, at least for those of you who watch on the main channel, and that is because I haven't noticed, or I haven't gone over Fortnite on the Isle. I haven't made one of these videos in, I think, like nearly 2 months at this point, at least a month and a half anyway. So it's been a little while since I've properly been able to update. But to be fair, the last few weeks didn't really have a whole lot to update except for like personal life stuff, and last Friday's video on the State of Affairs, July State of Affairs video, explains exactly what was going on with all of that. In addition to the little bit of a time jump that we've got going on here, and therefore a little bit of extra information that I need to go over, the structure for a Fortnight on the Isle is going to be a tad bit different than it was before. I was pretty unhappy with it as it stood, so I decided to adjust some things a little bit. I'm going to talk about my reading that I've been doing the last couple weeks, and a little of what I plan to do. Then I'll do the same thing for gaming, and then for like TV and movie type of stuff as well. So the reading is obviously for the main channel. If you know that my main channel is basically all book content, the rest of that kind of stuff will be about the second channel, because the non-book stuff goes to the second channel. This information will tease just a little bit of what I may be working on and what I may be covering soon, but after talking about all of this, I'll actually cover what I am working on, and we'll start the taste of, what is imminently releasing. It'll give you an idea of what I will be releasing video-wise over the upcoming couple of weeks. And then the writing-related updates I've decided to cut out of a Fortnight on the Isle, and instead just keep those for the States of Affair every month, because that kind of information is a little bit slower coming, and also slightly less interesting in my opinion, so that will no longer be a part of Fortnight on the Isle. Anyway, that's enough rambling about the format. The only other thing that I have to say for the introduction of this video is that I apologize if there's any noise like vehicles or something like that in the background. I have my window open because it is absolutely roasting today after recording a few videos already, so it's a little bit warm in here, and I should also apologize for any firework noises that you potentially hear. I am recording this on the 4th of July, so if that cuts through into the video, I apologize. I'm probably not going to do much to try to cut it out because it's not really worth the effort. Again, my window's open, so if you hear loud pops and stuff in the background, it's not gunfire, it's fireworks. With that being said, let's jump into the first section of the video, the bi-weekly reading, even though we're covering much more than the last couple of weeks. So in the novels and novella sphere, I did finish reading the Diamond Edition of Empire of Silence finally. It took me long enough, more than long enough, but I did finish it right at the very end of May. And I got to tell you that reading the Diamond Edition text and having it alongside the original text of the book was a relatively transcendental experience. It was like reading an entirely new book to some degree, and there were some moments that just really stood out as fantastic. The chapter called I Dare Not Me in Dreams in particular is really, really good. If you have access to the updated text, I definitely recommend reading that chapter, if nothing else. The next thing that I got to read over, the time since I last did one of these videos was early access to Shadows Upon Time, and I believe the day after I finished reading Empire of Silence, the Diamond Edition, Christopher sent me a little bit of early access, an early access file to Shadows Upon Time, and that was also a really, really great experience. I'm not going to say too much more about that now. We'll get into that a little bit later. But needless to say, it was fantastic. After reading Shadows Upon Time over, I would say, the course of like 3 quarters or so of June, it took me a little while to work through that. After previously taking a couple of months to get through Empire of Silence, I was able to quicken up my reading a little bit the last couple of weeks, we shall say, because one of the updates that I had in Friday's State of Affairs is that I'm now unemployed. The details of that I don't need to get to here. If you want more information on that, check out last Friday's video. But over that last couple weeks of employment, I did read all of The Dead Zone by Stephen King there at the very end of June. This was a really great experience as well. Really, really enjoyed this book. I think if you enjoy character work to any degree, you're going to like that book. And I definitely think it isn't really mentioned enough when it comes to like the great work of early Stephen King. The Dead Zone was a fantastic read. I definitely recommend that one. It was a surprise to be sure and was so good that I really, really had to stop myself from jumping directly into my next couple of Stephen King reads because it was just that enjoyable. Finally, the other thing that I did finish over recently, actually, this I finished over the last week. At the time of recording, it was about the last week that I read this at the time of the video's drop, week and a half. I finally finished We Who Wrestle with God by Jordan Peterson, a book that I started way back in like December, and I don't think I'd been able to pick up since like late January or something like that. I intended to continue the book, like reading maybe a part a month or something like that, from parts 5 through the end each month. So that means I probably would have finished the book somewhere around this point in time if I had continued it like that. But in the wake of waiting on a certain book to arrive, which we'll discuss here in a bit, not really having anything else to read, I was like, I'm finally going to get back on that train, start reading that book again, and I'll start working my way through that the rest of the summer. And it turned out that I just enjoyed myself enough with some of those last few parts that I ended up finishing the book entirely. I think parts 3 on Cain and Abel, part 6 on Abraham, and part 8, the second part on Moses, were probably my favorite parts of the book altogether. But just Peterson's discussions of theology and philosophy as it pertains to psychology, or maybe vice versa, maybe that sentence was backwards. His discussion of psychology as a psychologist and relating that to certain theological and or philosophical points is something that I've just always found like really interesting and even enlightening in some cases, and there was some pretty good stuff in here. It wasn't a perfect book. There were some parts that kind of flew over my head a little bit. I would say a lot of part 7, the first section on Moses, was kind of like only halfway grounded in something that I could personally understand. I would have to reread it to see if I could understand more of it. But I overall really enjoyed the book, actually, and I'm looking forward to being able to talk about it and actually review it here in a couple of months, because, yeah, I didn't actually expect to finish this book anywhere near this early. I was expecting it to take me a good number of months yet, but I had a good time with it. But a couple of the things that I'm looking to read in the very near future, at the time of recording this on Friday, I'm probably going to spend the rest of this weekend reading Philip Chase's new book, While Darkness Gathers. This is a pretty short one. If you know of the Adaman trilogy, which Philip Chase published a couple of years ago, all 3 of those books are significantly longer than this one. The first book in the Adaman trilogy is like 165,000 words, and it's the shortest of that trilogy. This book, in comparison, is like 90,000 words. It's less than 300 pages, in fact. So I doubt I'll be able to finish the rest of this book over just the next couple of days, but I'm going to enjoy myself with this one. I've been really looking forward to whatever Philip was going to work on next. He sent me this as an early access, a little signed copy. So thank you to Philip for that. If I could open up to the plate, there's your little signature in there. I'm really looking forward to this one, so I'll be starting this very soon. Furthermore, at the time of this video's release tomorrow, on Monday, I will be starting Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan and beginning my slow 4-week process of reading the book and doing Wheel of Time diaries on it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I think my goal for this week, at the very least, is to get through chapter 6, so about 130 or so pages into the book. That is the goal for now, and then I'll get another 130 pages or so into the book next week as well. But starting tomorrow, I'll be working on Winter's Heart. And then also starting tomorrow, a little bit more, I would say like background, but background's not necessarily the right term. But alongside Winter's Heart, I will be reading Howling Dark through the rest of the month, doing my reread of this book, kind of like I just reread Empire of Silence. With my reread of Empire of Silence in the Diamond Edition text, and also having read now Shadows Upon Time, I expect for Howling Dark to be a even better book somehow than it already was, and it was already tied for my favorite book in the Sun Eater alongside Ashes of Man prior to Shadows Upon Time. I don't know how things would rank now because of Shadows Upon Time, but needless to say, I already love this book, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much I enjoy it more on this go-around. On the short story side of things, I didn't read anything over the last couple of months, really, but I've been intending to get back to rereading the second Adaman story by Christopher Rocchio, and working on that, and then also rereading the third story because I can, in preparation for the fourth story coming out on his Patreon here very soon. If you're curious as to what Adaman is, it's Christopher Rocchio's first fantasy type of project. It's fantasy sort of in the vein of Conan, sort of in the vein of Robert E. Howard to a degree. At least in that like shorter fiction, more episodic, I guess. Episodic's not necessarily correct, but like in the stories aren't necessarily directly related to one another. I've really enjoyed the 3 Adaman stories so far. I'm looking forward to rereading the next couple of them, as I had reread The Barrow King, the first story of Adaman, a couple of months ago. If you want to read any of those 3 stories for yourselves, I'm putting at the very top of the description the links for the 3 of them. The Barrow King you can read free on somebody's Substack. You can also read The Shrine of Lost Stars as part of the purchasable e-arc on Bane.com of Swords and Larceny, an upcoming collection edited by, I forget who it's edited by, my apologies. And then The Pilgrim Road, the third story you can read, you can pay for to read as its own individual post on Christopher Rocchio's Patreon if you're not already a member of it at, I believe, the $10 tier or above. So I'll keep those linked in the top of the description of today's video. I'm looking forward to rereading the second and third stories of that in preparation for the fourth story to come relatively soon. Now we move on to the bi-weekly playing, even though again we're covering a couple months worth of material here. I've been playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33, as basically everybody was for a good long while there. I've been really enjoying myself. It's been way slower going than I was hoping because of work and dealing with some other personal things, and also now doing a lot of video work over the last couple of weeks and just not having as much time to play the game as I would like. I've not been able to finish it, but I've been playing it for a few weeks now, and I think up to this point it deserves all of the praise that it gets, to be completely honest with you. I think it is very, very good gameplay, has great writing, phenomenal music, and I would have probably finished the game a couple weeks ago if not for work and stuff like that, but alas, I couldn't quite plow through it the way that I wanted to. But that said, I will keep chipping away at Expedition 33 through July and hopefully be done with it by the end of the month. The next thing that I plan to be playing here very soon at the time of this recording, I'll probably be starting recording the Let's Play for Final Fantasy 1 to come out on the second channel starting in August. I'll probably be recording most of, if not all of that Let's Play this week. So starting tomorrow, maybe on Tuesday, not entirely sure yet, but I will be getting around to Final Fantasy 1 and returning to the series. Looking forward to returning to Final Fantasy. I've already played the first few games before, but I wanted to return to them, get them a little bit more top of mind and fresh, and then continue on with the series like I had originally planned to a few years ago, but then kind of got lost in the sauce and didn't end up following through with that as well as I had hoped. Finally, let's discuss the bi-weekly viewing, things that I've watched over the last couple of months, even though, you know, it's supposed to be the last couple of weeks. But over the last couple of months, I did do a rewatch of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which I enjoyed even more the second time than I did the first time. Really enjoyed myself with that movie. And I did that in preparation of being able to watch Mission Impossible Final Reckoning in the theater, which I thought was an okay movie. It's not terrible. Even though I think the exposition sucks, I would have preferred the movie to start where Dead Reckoning left off. It would have made more sense as a one-part, two-part movie, as was originally intended. So I was kind of disappointed by the exposition, and thus the first act in general being pretty messy. But the second act was good. I enjoyed myself a lot with that. But the final act of the movie was really great, barring some unexplained plot points. Overall, I think Final Reckoning was a good and exciting movie, but it's also pretty messy, and so I think it's somewhat inferior to Dead Reckoning. I also watched, over the last couple weeks, went and saw How to Train Your Dragon, the live action film, in the theater. When remaking a movie as good as I had remembered the OG being, it felt like it was going to be really hard to mess it up that bad, and fortunately, it didn't mess it up basically at all. It's basically a shot-for-shot remake with a few extended scenes, a few extended bits of dialogue, more space to breathe in a lot of moments that I really liked. Even though there were a couple of scenes that were cut, one of those was pretty unconsequential and I didn't mind too much. But the scene that basically foreshadows the tactic to overcome the climactic ending was cut, and that seemed like a very odd decision to me. But, you know, it's whatever. I overall really enjoyed the movie, and seeing it in the theater and having that swelling music during a couple of flight moments was just really special. The CGI of the live action was incredible. I think that Disney definitely needs to be taking notes on how well this movie just looks and how well it honors the spirit of the original, because Disney has kind of failed on that front. I also rewatched, following, watching the live action version, I went ahead and rewatched the original, the OG How to Train Your Dragon, and I thought that it aged quite well. There's some cartoonish moments that are kind of whatever, that don't fully sit well with me, that I prefer the more grounded live action version for, but it's overall a very good movie. In addition, I kind of found myself while watching this version of the movie wishing for the extra breathing room that the live action provides, just as kind of a preference thing. But again, it's still a very special and nostalgic film, and a very, very good one. Over this weekend, actually, probably not long after I record this. No, I'm going to be editing videos tonight. Tomorrow, on Saturday, which at the time of this video's release is yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and watch How to Train Your Dragon 2, and then watch the final film as well. How to Train Your Dragon 2, I remember being even better than the original. In fact, a lot of what I remembered about the original didn't happen in the original. It apparently all happened in the second movie, so it definitely stuck with me a lot more, even though I'd seen it less often. And the third movie, I'm pretty sure I never saw at all, so that'll be an exciting first-time experience, and I'll be sure to update you on how that went in the next update. But now that we've talked through all of that stuff that I experienced over the last couple of months, let's talk about the releases that have come out on the channel and are going to be coming out on the channel. So last week, because there wasn't a Fortnite on the Isle to announce any of last week's videos on either channel, on the 30th, last Monday, I released my favorite music of Quarter 2 2025, episode 15 of Music Mania. That was a good time. And not very many people watch that for very long, unfortunately, but I go over basically my 10 favorite albums and EPs that released over April, May, and June of 2025. So check that out if you enjoy metal music to any degree. On the main channel, on the 1st, on Tuesday, I released my top 5 favorite books of 2025 so far, and then went over basically my extended TBR for the rest of 2025. That was also a very enjoyable video to make, but that one did get a little bit more reception, more than even I expected it to get. On Thursday the 3rd, on the main channel, I released my Quarter 2 2025 physical book haul video, and that was a good one. That's probably going to be the last regular book haul video that I do. Any others that I do from this point forward will be kind of sporadic, and will only be when I have enough things to show off that I feel justified in showing off, instead of making it a regular scheduled part of the channel. On the 4th, on Friday, I've mentioned it a few times before, but my July 2025 State of Affairs, updating where I've been the last couple of months, that video came out as well. And that video was a good one. It did get good reception. I appreciate people for checking that out and for wishing me well. If you want to know anything that's been going on over the last couple months, I recommend checking out that video. It is on both channels now, kind of like I mentioned earlier. And then yesterday, on Saturday the 5th, my first episode of the Jurassic the Hunted Let's Play came out. That's a pretty scuffed game that I remember fondly from my childhood. It's only a couple hours long. It's only going to be a 2-episode Let's Play, but the first episode came out yesterday. As for what's actually releasing over the next couple of weeks, let's talk this week 1st. Tomorrow on the 7th will be Movie Magic Episode 1, and that will actually be a full review of How to Train Your Dragon 2025. So the live action remake of the film, I wrote that script all in a day just a couple of days ago and recorded and edited that video all in the same day as well. I'm very happy with how that video turned out. I'm very happy with how that script turned out. It's one of my favorites that I've written. And frankly, I got through those 2,700 words in just a couple of hours. It was a really, really efficient morning that morning, and I had a great time with it. And I hope you check out and enjoy that video. On Tuesday the 8th on the main channel will be my review of Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 4 by Christopher Ruocchio, the 4th short story collection within the Sun Eater universe. That collection releases next week on the 15th, so I'm reviewing that a week before it drops. So I hope you guys are excited for that. I hope anybody who's excited for it checks out the review. You don't have to, and maybe it would even be better if you didn't. That's a pretty scuffed video, probably my worst video that I'm posting this month. On this Thursday, the 10th, will be the first episode of the Wheel of Time Diaries about Winter's Heart, so it'll be the 47th episode in total. That'll be talking about those first 130 or so pages of the book. So I'll be reading those 130 pages over the next few days, and then putting out that first episode on Thursday. This Saturday on the 12th will be the second episode of that Jurassic the Hunted Let's Play, and then that'll be the finale of that game. Just a really short and sweet, just two-parter there. Couple of hours long. So I hope that everybody who's interested in a scuffed dinosaur game checks those out, because I think it's a really fun game. It's not worth buying and playing for yourself. It's not good enough for that, but it's definitely a fun romp nonetheless. As for next week, on Monday the 14th, will be my first scripted game review type of video that I've done in a very, very long time. In fact, I'm pretty sure the last one of those I did was on the main channel like 3 years ago, or more than 3 years ago at this point. But next Monday will be, it actually won't even be a review video. It'll be more of an impressions video where I'll be covering the Crowsworn backer demos and discussing my impressions of Crowsworn as a whole and why I'm excited for the full release of that game. Then on Tuesday the 15th on the main channel will be my review of Shadows Upon Time by Christopher Ruocchio. Like I said, I got early access to that. I think that video is also pretty good. It's scripted in the vein that the How to Train Your Dragon video tomorrow is. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that everybody who's into Sun Eater is excited for that and, you know, comes to be really excited for the book. I think it is totally worth the wait. I cannot wait for the rest of you guys to get to read that in November. But again, I won't say anything more. I'll let that review here next week talk about that a little bit more. Next Thursday on the 17th will be episode 2 of the Wheel of Time Diaries pertaining to Winter's Heart, so nothing new to really talk about there. But then next Saturday on the 19th on the second channel will actually be the first scripted review video that I talked about, where next Monday's video is going to be more of an impressions on Crowsworn. That video on Saturday will actually be a review, and it will be talking about Jurassic the Hunted, because I just completed that Let's Play at that point. Those couple of videos I think is a short, scuffed, fun game despite being pretty bad. I'm actually kind of excited to be able to critique that in some way, shape, or form. It's not going to be quite a critical analysis worthy. It's just going to be called a brief review. So episode 1 of a brief review will be on Jurassic the Hunted next Saturday. All of that being said, that's all that I have for this fortnight. This ended up being a really long video, and I'm sorry for trying to rush through everything and talking really quickly these last several minutes. It's been a long week. Definitely a little bit tired. My voice is a little bit tired now too. I hope you guys like the new format. I'm definitely more a fan of this format than I was of the previous one. So if you feel the same way, please let me know in the comments below. With that, I have several more things that I've got to do this weekend. I need to edit this video and a couple more that I've already recorded today. And I have a few more review scripts and stuff for videos that I talked about in today's video that I need to get written tomorrow. So I'm going to be busy for the rest of this weekend. With all that being said, I'll see you guys again for another Fortnight on the Isle on July 20th. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.